So welcome to the webinar, Proctoring with Read and Write. This webinar is hosted by the Network of Assistive Technologists on this Friday, the 19th of November, 2021. Taking a moment to introduce our presenters, I'd like to first welcome Lisa Horner. And as many AT professionals have, Lisa brings a variety of experience to her role at Georgian College. Lisa was a travel consultant for over 20 years, a student, and then a part-time testing clerk. Seeing the potential in AT, Lisa continued her education and since 2010 has held the dual role of a testing specialist and an adaptive technology assistant at Georgian College. This role is where she discovered Read and Write and helped develop its application in accommodated exams. So, and joining us from Texthelp is Dan Shannon. Although Dan has only been with Texthelp for 4 years, he has certainly developed a specialization for working with higher ed institutions, and Dan carries a passion for helping the assistive technology profession develop and meet our goals so we can in turn support our clients. Both Lisa and Dan, as well as countless others, continue to be supported by Matt Brown from Texthelp, and unfortunately, Matt is unable to be with us here today. So welcome, Lisa and Dan, and thank you for joining us today. With that said, I will now hand over the screen sharing to Lisa and Dan and let them begin our presentation.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. It's Lisa here, obviously. And so I will start and let me share my screen. And I will try not to talk too fast. And let's go here. Okay, so just to reiterate, today we're going to talk about proctoring with the use of Read and Write. So I happen to be on one of the smaller campuses of Georgian College, our main campus being the Barrie location. My test center here has space for 11, 6 of which have private test rooms. And I have a dual role here because of the size of our campus. So I have both the hat of an adaptive technologist as well as that of the testing specialist. So just to kind of give you an idea, as most of you are adaptive technologists, my title says I'm an assistant, but I still do the same role as any other adaptive tech here on campus at Georgian. And primarily I do assessments with students who have qualified for the BSWD. For those who aren't Canadian, that's the bursary for students with disabilities, as well as those who don't qualify for the BSWD. The BSWD is funding that students who have completed documentation and have supportive documentation to support that they have a disability, we're able to access funding then through the government, both provincially and federally, to help purchase the recommended adaptive tech that we may suggest. And that comes after we do an assessment. After doing the assessment, and if the BSWD funding comes through, we do software training. That can be included with Read and Write, of course, Dragon, Inspiration, and anything else pretty much they can throw at us, as well as some hardware tech. So things like the C-pens, live scribes. And then I find, at least as an adaptive tech, there's always aspects of learning strategies that go in hand with that. So that's kind of my adaptive tech hat. And when I'm not doing that, I'm also then doing the testing here for our campus. So my core role is that of doing the testing for the accommodated students. Those are both enrolled, so they are here taking full-time programs as well as potential students. So those would be those taking admission testing. I also look after that for Georgian as well. As the testing specialist, when I'm working here in person, I'm setting up the tests for students. So that includes their, if they've been approved for using adaptive software like Read and Write or Dragon, and then having the tests ready for them on their computers, whether that's in a PDF or Word. And then as a testing specialist, I also need to know how to troubleshoot those the adaptive technology as well, because sometimes it doesn't always cooperate. So all testing staff, I'm the only one at Georgian who has the dual role. The rest are either an adaptive tech or a testing specialist. And everybody is trained on how to at least troubleshoot with the software that we typically use, the Read and Write and the Dragon. So as the AT, those students who are identified as needing accommodation, so if they need to use the text-to-voice software or voice-to-tech, they all do have to meet with an adaptive technologist first. And that's whether they're going through for funding or not. We want to make sure that they have the good foundation to be able to use the software in a testing situation. And that includes potential students. So we do have those who come in from the community who want to do the admission test to get into the program. And they may have had an IEP before in high school. So we don't want them to be excluded from having that option of being able to hear the content of their test. So we do, at Georgian, use the AccuPlacer as an admission test. So we do train potential students on how to use Read and Write enough so that they'll be able to work their way through the test. We've also had to adapt and learn how to teach students how to do this virtually as well. So when we had to pivot quickly to do virtual testing for admissions from home, we also then had to teach the testing staff how to train or how to help students then download Google Chrome as well as screenshot reader so that they'd be able to utilize the read and write functions to be able to listen to the AccuPlacer test while they were at home. For potential students who were here in person, they would often meet with me just prior to writing the AccuPlacer test because fortunately, Read and Write is actually quite an easy program to learn. And when they're in a testing situation, they only have the use of 5 or 6 icons anyway. So the preliminary training prior to taking the test is pretty short and pretty easy. Yeah, so that's it for that slide. For adaptive tech, we also remind all students who are enrolled that they do have the option of using it for all their alt format texts as well as their online content. So we do make sure that they are familiar with how to use Read and Write for whether it's the screenshot reader for accessing online content, Blackboard, as well as if they're getting to do tests at home, that they can use the screenshot reader for accessing their Blackboard tests so they can still hear the content. We don't want them to still be not have their accommodations, even if they're working virtually. As a testing staff person, we also need to know how to convert PDFs to Word and vice versa. Those who have used Read and Write before in a testing situation, yeah, you can understand that sometimes a PDF doesn't always want to work, or there's the convenience of changing it to a different format. That just comes into play, and that just comes with experience where you learn if there's a particular format. We do find sometimes, though, if we translate a Word document into PDF, if there's too many math equations, for example, they do get a little scrambled along with some graphics. All right, we do here at Georgian use LAN School. So if you're not familiar with LAN School, it's a way for us to be able to monitor tests remotely. So let me give you an idea of how that looks. Okay, so for these are the screens that I look at here in my testing situation. So I have got currently 6 computers. Just want to touch base and make sure, does that all look okay for everybody?
Lisa, we're still seeing your slides here.
Okay, 1 second. So I'm going to just stop sharing that screen. Thank you for letting me know. And I'm just going to change to a different window. Can you see the LAN School now?
Yep, we can see it now.
Thank you. Appreciate that. So this is what it looks like when I'm looking at the LAN School, and this is from my office. So if you're not familiar with this, this is a way for me now to be able to choose a computer monitor. So I'm going to choose this computer. and I'm going to control it. And this is a way that I can actually set up a student's test from the safety of my own office. So this is the actual desktop, and I'm going to go down and start up Read and Write. So we have Read and Write installed on all the campus computers here for our students. And I have signed in using a login that is specific to our test centers. Even if a student logged in using their own logins, if we had them coming in, I can still lock down their computer, and I'll show you how I do that. So in here, I would actually choose one of the user groups that we have set up, which is the testing one. And I'm choosing one of the long list of computers that have it installed. So, and then my password here. And then this gives me access to Read and Write. Okay, so there is my toolbar. So I just wanted to show you on the toolbar here, we have the common icons of the play, pause, stop. This is the screenshot reader. And it doesn't matter which if I can go ahead and toggle through, you'll see at no point does the dictionary come up. So the dictionary is the one that a lot of people are concerned about, that a student can go in and they can start choosing which toolbar they want to use. And I've got that locked off because we use the teacher's toolkit. Now I think if I want to show you back to my PowerPoints, I'm going to have to stop sharing and toggle back. So let me just do that. Okay. So this is what it looks like on the teacher's toolkit side. When you've got the teacher's toolkit package, we're able to set up user groups. So in the example that is here, you can set up different groups and turn off and on the different features that are available to that group. So for us here at Georgian, we have it so that the prediction, dictionary, any spelling features are all turned off. This is a side of Read and Write that I'm not really familiar with because we're very fortunate that our IT department looks after it. There was consultation at the beginning as to what icons we wanted, and they went in and created all the user groups for us. There is an excellent video here by Texthelp, which I will drop the link to that in the chat here later, if that's okay with everybody. It does give a very good description of what the Teacher's Toolkit is all about, and should hopefully give you some guidance on why that is such a helpful aspect of the program. Without it, to let you know, if we didn't have the Teacher's Toolkit, students could log on and they could choose whatever features they want. So just go back here to my LAN School screen. Want to make sure, are you seeing LAN School? You should see a desktop.
Nothing yet, Lisa.
Okay, thank you. Let's see. So once I've got them here in Read and Write, I can set this again all up from my desktop.
Lisa, it's not showing, sorry.
Thank you. All right. All right. So if I want to have Read and Write set up for them, I have actually gone ahead already and dropped the tests on the desktop for the student. So if I'm having a test that is in PDF, this is the key for, we have staff always get tripped up on this. PDF test, you got to start with the PDF icon. And then I can go in, find my test that I've already dropped. There's my PDF test, and I can go ahead and open the test. And then the test is ready then for the student. As always with testing, before I leave it to the students to use, I always want to make sure that the test actually works. So I can see just by it clicking by through with the yellow highlight that it is reading the test. Okay. Little tricks that we forget to remind our students: green light on means it'll work. If it's in red, it's not going to read. We do need to remind them too that often that they do have the access to always use the help button if they need. So we do should remind them always to show them around how the document works. So that's the easy part for the PDF. If it was just a word test, again, I can go in, choose my word test, and then they've got access. Now, the beautiful thing with using LAN School is I can go up here to limit the web. I can actually block all web pages for the student. So if they don't know what chartreuse is, they can't go down to Google and open it, and they can't access anything. So if I were to try and access Microsoft Edge, I should get an error message pop up. I don't even think it's going to open. So yeah, it shouldn't work with anything here for them. I can see it's all grayed out, so they shouldn't have access to any sort of online content. Okay. And then we can go back to the test. At any point during the test, if I need to stop the student, there are capabilities within LAN School that I can actually put a stop on the test and interrupt what they're doing. You can record what they're doing as well. So if there's a question of any time that they're clicking on things they shouldn't be, I can manage that. We've had students try to close the program and log back in. And because we're using LAN School, we're actually able to see that they've tried to do that. So that's the beauty of being able to watch all students at the same time simultaneously. So if I stop viewing, I'd be able to see, as I'm doing my test here, what each student is doing on their desktop, what they've got open. You can see here by the icon that the internet is locked off for them. Okay. I'm going to stop sharing the LAN School screen for a second, pop back into PowerPoint. Okay, so just to show you a little bit better, this was the login screen that we have here at Georgian, where I choose my user group. And you can set up a variety of different user groups depending on the needs of the tester. Ours are pretty straightforward, but you can complicate it if you like. And that just gives you an idea of all the different choices of the computers that actually have it set up. There are times, especially during exam periods, where I might try to choose a computer to use read and write, and it's already being used, and it will pop up with an error message saying, sorry, read and write is already being used. And then I just have to choose another CPT 03 or 04 instead. I had shown you, this is just a little better screen of the toolbar that we typically have available to our students.
Lisa, I'm sorry to interrupt, but the screen share didn't come through after there.
Oh, my apologies.
When you do a screen share, it may allow you to choose your entire screen. Just keep in mind if you have any other personal private information on your screen, you might not want to do that.
Thank you. Want to make sure you can see PowerPoint?
Yes, it's showing up. Sorry.
Thank you. So this is just a brighter, crisper view of the toolbar we typically have available to the students. If they choose to toggle through and choose a different selection of options that are showing, at no time will they ever have the option to choose the dictionary. So these are the ones they often have to use, whether they're in a Word, PDF, or even a Blackboard test, because the screenshot reader does work, whether they're in Blackboard. And this is the icon we will show them if they're here in person on how to use that for AccuPlacer testing. Okay. One little trick we've learned the hard way, sometimes a PDF won't work. That's when we have to use the scan icon. So it's this icon up here. Sometimes you have to scan a PDF to a PDF. Sounds counterproductive, but for some reason it works. And then the PDF will then allow us to read it. That's a little anomaly that we've learned the workaround. Okay, so students can use Read and Write to listen to the content of any Word or the PDF test. Sometimes they have accompanying documents that we have to drop onto the desktop that they are able to use as well. So at no time are they ever at a disadvantage of not being able to hear the content. PDF, again, the key with that one is you want to click on the PDF icon first and then open up the PDF document. You can't open the PDF and expect the reader to work. It just doesn't work together. LAN School does give us the option of then locking down the test and limiting what access they have on the web. So we still might want them to be able to access Blackboard, but we don't want them to access anything else. So we can actually make those choices. When we started working remotely, we could do the staff and the student, we would meet via WebEx and Teams and share screens. That's actually at the point then we would help them out with doing the Google Chrome extension so that they could use Read and Write from home and the screenshot reader to do their AccuPlacer tests, or to get those students who have accommodations and using Blackboard from home. Okay, that is the end of my part. Dan, I hope you don't have a lot of things for me to click on. I think we should be okay from here.
Yeah, just clicking a couple slides.
Perfect.
Nice and easy for you. Well, thank you, Lisa.
Thank you.
Since we had such a big group of Read and Write users here, I did think this would be a good time just to update you on a couple things when it comes to Read and Write. So some of you may have heard this. We're actually in the process of rewriting Read and Write. So this is one of the biggest updates we've ever had. We're basically rewriting the entire software itself to make it just work overall better. So it's going to work better with LMSs, and it's going to work better with websites. Your Microsoft experiences are going to be improved. And the toolbar itself will have an updated look. A lot of the features are going to have updated images for you to click on. And it's going to make it also easier to switch back and forth between languages. And then a couple other things that are coming out down the line will be the Microsoft authentication will get a little smoother, and setting profiles, which is going to be really cool to have, especially for people that speak two languages. So what this will be is similar to how if you're on Google and you want to switch from, say, like your personal Gmail account to your work Gmail account, you just click the little picture there that you have, or the little icon, and you can just switch right there and all your settings are saved. We're building something similar to that into Read and Write. So you can have, say, a French profile where all your settings are in French, and then also have an English profile where all your settings are in English. So this is going to be really cool and really help speed up that process of switching there. So this rewrite should be released in the coming months. It's going to start with the Google extension. That one's being released first, and then the Microsoft one is going to come a month or two after that, I believe. But the Gmail or the Google extension one will come out first. So if your students are using that when they're using Gmail, they can see that update there. And Lisa, if you click onto the next slide.
Okay.
And then Orbit Note. I'm sure some of you have heard of this. Maybe you were on our webinar yesterday that we actually had about Orbit Note. So Orbit Note has replaced the Read and Write PDF reader. And this was something that's been in the works for a while now. We changed it from just being the PDF reader, which was just an application, to now being a progressive web application. So it makes the experience a little bit smoother. Everything that you were able to do with the Read and Write PDF reader, you'll still be able to do with Orbit Note with your Read and Write subscription. But we will be building premium features into this as well. So LMS integration OCRing, similar to what people have done with SnapVerter in the past. I know this is very popular with K-12. And some higher ed institutions have SnapVerter as well, but we will be building that OCRing into N.O.A.T. So you'll just be able to do full page OCRing and then have it read right in the same application. It's also going to have some cross-browser support there. And then down the line, we are also going to be adding some other features in there, such as digital signatures, fillable forms, voice comments. These are going to be very, very helpful for almost like the professional side of things, and very helpful for higher education as well, where students are going to be having to sign things or fillable forms, those kind of things. You'll see that a lot in higher education. That's actually where we got a lot of those requests. So that's coming down the line. The LMS integration should hopefully be in the coming months, along with the OCR, hopefully by the end of the year. And then phase 3 will be a little further, a couple months after that. And that's it for me, Lisa, if you want to click to the next slide.
Okay, so that's really the end of our PowerPoint and presentation here from the two of us. So I do thank N.O.A.T for the opportunity. And if you do have any questions and you didn't want to ask them today, please feel free to email me. And same for Dan, we're both available to you. And I will go ahead and stop sharing my screen here. And I'll flip my camera on.
All right. Thank
there
you,
you go.
Lisa. Appreciate
How's
that.
that for the AT not knowing what button to click on? I'm sorry.
Appreciate that. And just pulling some stuff together here on my end to get us back up with screen sharing here. So just bear with my divided attention here for half a second. But while I'm doing that, and we're all thinking of our questions and comments, there's a couple in the chat that we'll get to in just a second. But I do want to just remind people that if they want to speak using unmuting their microphone, if you could just raise your hand using the raise hand icon in the bottom toolbar, and as Lyle has done, and then we'll get to you in order of that. The one thing to keep in mind is with the raise hand icon in Google Meet, that feature, they've actually developed it pretty well, but almost too well, because sometimes a discussion will start happening, and Google Meet will actually detect that you have, if you've raised your hand and you start speaking in a conversation with somebody about something else, it will detect that you've spoken, and it'll think that your reason for your hand being raised is no longer needed, so it will automatically lower your hand. If that happens, just raise your hand again. It's one of those benefits of Google Meet, and it actually works against us as we start to have discussions. So please do raise your hand, like I say, as Lyle's done. And Lyle, while I finish getting a few of these chats or messages in the chat together, if you want to go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question.
Yeah, thanks, Doug. And thanks, Lisa and Dan. That was a really great presentation. Thank you. There was so much to capture there. So forgive me if my questions were answered by you, but I need to ask them to get some clarity. I'm going to throw my stuff in the chat just to sort of, in case you need a reference when I'm asking them. But the first one I want to know about is, Lisa, did you explore using hover speech with AccuPlacer and whether that works or not? Dan, I love N.O.A.T and what it's doing. That presentation yesterday was awesome. I'm going to begin integrating it next week. So kudos to the team on that. Lisa, the teacher login, I'm curious if you can tell me if that's necessary to still be able to limit functions and features when you're administering tests. I noticed you were using version 11. Is there a reason why you're using that version and you haven't upgraded to the newer one, or am I just seeing the screen wrong? Dan, return of mind mapping. You know, you have such a one-stop shop tool with read and write, and you took away mind mapping. You do really good work in all areas: text-to-speech, speech-to-text, word prediction. Love to have mind mapping back if that's an option. And then the last is, since you're redesigning the program entirely, can you address Lockdown Browser and make it so it's a more functional tool in Lockdown Browser? Okay, I'm sorry for bogarting all those questions. Thank you.
Testing my memory as to what you asked first. Thanks, Lyle. I'm going to look into hover speech. I will check into that. Anything that will make the whole process easier for both students and staff would be amazing. We have been using the Teacher's Toolkit because we found that even if I used our logins, a student can go in and manipulate the toolbar. As much as we like to go on the trust side of things, there's always that one who's going to push the limits and get access to things we don't want them to. So unless there's a way that Texthelp can suggest, there's a way of using just the non-Teacher's Toolkit version and locking things down, but I haven't been able to find that as yet. Did I grab every question that you gave me?
The other one was just around the version. Did I see that it was version 11? Is that correct?
Version, yes, thank you. We're actually just in the midst of updating. Yeah, we've had some change in IT staff, and it's been on their list of things to do, and it's actually happening in the next week or two. So, good catch.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Dan, if you could answer any other questions.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm glad. First off, I'm glad to hear that you like Orbit Note and you think that will help you and your students. As far as mind mapping, I'll definitely pass that along to our product managers. That's something that I actually haven't heard a lot of feedback from, but I think that'll definitely be helpful for them to hear that. And then as far as lockdown browser, I know that's on our roadmap to improve and to continue to develop. That is something that is used quite a bit, especially by higher ed. So that is something we're not forgetting about that. I don't believe it's built into the rewrite, but it will be continue to be developed over the course of the next year or so.
Yeah, it's just that, a lot of institutions like ours are using Lockdown Browser, and the functions that work for read and write in Lockdown are just not tools that students really use. So when you're talking to the team, if you can have them analyze, is there a way to make it still work? I know Lockdown has a whole lot of rules around it, but anything you can do to make it a better tool would be awesome.
So are there any features that you would like to see brought into the Lockdown browser?
Text to speech without having to use the screenshot reader would be ideal. Somehow to make it so that the hover speech works, or you can just highlight and press play. There's an application called Read Speaker, which has found a way to make it work. If you want to take a look at them and see what they've done to make Lockdown Browser and Read Speaker work, that might be a little bit of a starter.
Okay, I'll definitely pass that along to them as well. That's certainly helpful here.
Cheers. Thanks, Dan. Thanks, Lisa.
Thanks, Lyle. And just in a follow-up there, Suzanne has added into the chat just that hopefully the Lockdown browser for Read and Write will be available for the Mac as well. So another piece of information for you to feedback there, Dan.
Certainly, I'll write that down as well.
And okay, so again, just a reminder, anybody who wants to speak by unmuting their microphone, just to raise their hand and we'll get to you. I'm going to go back to the chat here, and hopefully I won't miss any comments or questions that have been put in, but if I do, please feel free to either raise your hand or to re-add them into the chat. So Eliza has asked, are there going to be changes to the Mac version of Read Write as well?
So I believe that is coming down the line. That I'm not sure if that's been started yet. I know Google and Microsoft were the priority at first, just based on what the majority of our users use. I'm sure I'm sure Mac is coming down the line, but it's not being worked on at this time.
Okay, great. Thank you, Dan. Robert has made a comment and a request that while Read and Write is being rewritten, if you as a company can be sure to make sure that the navigating of the user interface is compatible with screen readers and keyboard navigation. Noting here that some areas aren't too great right now, understanding that some features in Read and Write just aren't designed for those who are blind, such as highlighting and that, but the interface should still be accessible. There should still be keyboard commands, such as for starting, stopping speech and other functions. So.
Yes, so I actually already copy and pasted that into an email draft so that I didn't forget that comment. So I have that whole thing, and that I'll be sure to pass that along, Robert.
Perfect. Thank you for taking that forward on Robert and everybody else's behalf, Dan. And a user in the meeting here today labeled as AO Review. I apologize, I'm not sure who that relates to, but they're curious on how many institutions are making Read Write available to all students through college or university-wide license. I know there was a reply, I think, Lisa, you put in that you're at Georgian, you do, and I'm not sure if there's any numbers that maybe Dan you have the ability to share on that, or anybody else that wants to
So
comment.
So I don't know numbers off the top of my head. I do know that the majority of colleges and universities that we work with do offer read and write, or Equatio for that matter, to the entire student body. A lot of times it has to do with just our pricing structure. It makes more sense for them to do it that way, um, depending on like the size of your school and how many students you're targeting to use it with. But I would definitely say the majority, probably over 80% of the colleges I work with, choose to do the whole system as opposed to just doing a group license for 150 or 200, 300 students.
Okay, great. And some responses here in the chat to back those or back that statement up, Dan, is we have TRU, which I think is Thompson Rivers University, has a site license, College of the North Atlantic as well, and University of Wisconsin Milwaukee, and Keano College and University of Dayton. Wow, another response from another person at the College of North Atlantic, and Lakehead University is in the midst of doing the site license. Danielle says, hi, Dan. And
I do, man.
Chris from Algonquin is identifying that they have the site license as well as Centennial does. And I know myself at King's University College in London, we have a slightly modified version of a site license. And then Queen's University and Anne Newman from there is got both Read and Write and Equatio. And Loyalist from Ted, thank you, Ted. Long time no see, Ted, welcome. And yeah, so lots of people are, yeah, and their response from that from the person who asked the question is they're able to use these numbers as peer pressure, hoping that their VCC, which is that Vancouver Community College, if I'm not mistaken, will buy a site license. So happy to help, and I'm sure that the numbers that have responded today just in this small webinar. Obviously, that's just a small sampling of the number of institutions that Dan and his colleagues look after and support. So thank you everybody for sharing that. Chris has just raised a hand, so go ahead, Chris.
Sorry guys, I was distracted and I didn't catch. So I noticed the toolkit and realized that was from an older version of Read and Write. We're using version 12 at Algonquin. Is that compatible with 12, or do you have to go into the admin settings and set it to exam mode? I missed if you answered that already, Dan, so I apologize, or Lisa. But yeah, is there a teacher's toolkit now for version 12?
Yes.
Oh, okay, that's excellent.
That's still available. It may look a little different, but you're still able to do all the same stuff.
Okay, fantastic. And then this may also have been asked, but probably the biggest, and this is not really related to proctoring, just the read and write product in general, which we kind of tangented into, but voices and use of like the more natural sounding voices that Microsoft has, is that something that's on the radar for read and write to provide access to those?
In terms of adding more voices on the toolbar.
Yeah, getting out of the Microsoft David, Microsoft Zira, those ones, going more into maybe something like Microsoft Guy. There's one called Guy that's they're just more natural sounding, and I guess there's a lot of back end things to consider there because it's all cloud based. Those voices, so I'm not sure, but that's probably the number one complaint I get about read and write. And students are like, "Oh, it's terrible," but I'll get used to it. is the computer sounding voice. So I'm just curious on the development of that, Dan, if there's anything going on with that.
Yeah. So as far as I know, that's not something that I've talked about with any of our product managers. I'll certainly bring it up and ask. I know we do offer all of the Google voices. So those ones aren't named. I think it's just called like Google US English. Um, and I know it's Microsoft David, Microsoft Mark, and then we have a couple others built in, like I think it's like Ava, Allison, and Tom. I think there are a couple US English voices they call them. Um, And then as well, one of my favorite things about Read and Write, honestly, is the different dialects and how we have those built in. So if you were over in the United Kingdom, you could have a UK English, or you can have a Canadian French dialect versus the France French dialect. So I always like that. But I'll definitely pass that along and ask if we have any more realistic voices coming in the pipeline.
That's awesome. And I'll be the first to admit that I actually do use like the British and the Australian one just for fun.
Yeah.
And the
I'm
Irish
certain
one as
of
well.
that. It's certainly fun.
All right. Thank you for those. Thanks for humoring me with those answers.
Great, thanks, Chris. Thanks, Dan. Just going back in the chat, and as we're doing that, again, anybody else who wants to speak by voice, please just raise your hand. Anne has put a vote in for bringing Texthelp on to a N.O.A.T webinar to demonstrate the Orbit N.O.A.T PDF platform, and let us grill you guys further on that and potentially give you some feedback. And as I think the folks at Texthelp and those in our audience are well aware that we're not a shy group. We love to give feedback where we see positive and negatives and opportunities for further developments. So I put that out there for you, Dan.
Yeah, I'd certainly be happy to come back once the premium features are all released and everything, hopefully in the new year. Definitely come back. I'd be open to doing that, presenting Orbit N.O.A.T and getting some more feedback on it.
Perfect. All right, we'll make it a date. We'll put it on our follow-up list. I'm looking forward to that. And Anne has put another comment in that they have many students whose documentation may not support having alternate format services as an accommodation, but the Orbit N.O.A.T PDF image reader OCR scanning to a readable PDF, it'll be a game changer for those students. So it's another positive there where we can make it into a universal design type setting. So thanks for sharing those thoughts, Anne. And Lyle has made a comment here about doing cost benefit analysis prior to site licensing for those institutions and students where there might be government money to fund Read Write. But then when the site license model came into existence, they could offer it further wide beyond just the students. So it's dramatically reduced the cost as a whole from a tax dollar perspective. Lyle, I'm certain that I've very poorly summarized your comment there. So if there's anything that you'd like to add directly to that, by all means, go ahead.
Yeah, no, you did a great job, Doug. And just like Dan, cover your ears, because like in no way do we want you to increase the price of your product. But yeah, AO, it just made sense to us, right? When you do the number of bursaries we were processing before, the gold version of Read and Write back in those days, as it was called, was like $800 per license that would go to one student for their 1, 2, or 3 year program. And then, Texthelp brought out the site license model, and it was like, depending on your institution size, you're looking at under $10,000 for a site-wide license for all staff and students. And so massive game changer in terms of being able to support your students. So I strongly encourage you to have a conversation with your rep and see what they can do.
All right, thanks for that additional information there, Lyle. And yes, as noted there, it does make total sense. The price increase, we definitely don't want to see that. We're very forthcoming with our feedback, Dan.
Yeah, no, I don't blame you. I don't want a price increase either, because that means I have to talk to all you guys about it. So yeah, those aren't fun conversations. So hopefully we don't have any of those. I don't foresee us having anytime soon.
Yeah, but I'm not offering a webinar for you to announce a price increase.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect that.
No, I'm just teasing, but yeah. All right, so I think I've caught up with all the questions and comments and thoughts that were in the chat. Again, if I've missed something, please either add it in again or raise your hand and speak the comment or thought or question. And just as we're kind of coming to a close here, just a reminder to add those thoughts and questions. And I just wanted to thank both Lisa and Dan. The content of today's presentation was fantastic. There's a lot of information in there that the two of you presented, and some of it it almost needs to be a hands-on tutorial for a lot of the stuff that Lisa presented for how it's set up and how to make it work and all the behind the scenes. And you did a really fantastic job, Lisa, at putting that together in a kind of a presentation format. And I'm sure that there's a lot more that you could talk about if we were to get into a hands-on situation. So I encourage those who are here today. We don't want to totally monopolize Dan and Lisa's time with nitpicky, like detail-oriented questions. But if there's something that you're asking or that you want to ask and understand a little bit further with regards to how this is done or what the functions are or that, please speak up. Now's your time for a conversation directly, even though Lisa and Dan are definitely open to connection after the event. But it's if there's any details that you're looking for clarification there. And Dan has put his email in the chat, and so has Lisa, and that's great. And I know that I think, Dan, we finally got you signed up to be a member of the N.O.A.T community. Am I correct?
Yeah, so I've had my personal email in there for a while, but
Yeah.
to get my work email on this, I signed this one up as well. So yeah, I am in there, and I do get those emails, which are
Okay.
always fun to follow.
Perfect. And I know that there was a little delay in getting you set up there when you came on board, and I couldn't. My failing aging memory was not perfect there. So thanks. I'm glad that we did finally get you in there. So why I was asking that, Dan, is I wanted to let our audience know that those who are members of the Network of Assistive Technologists. Feel free if you have read write questions. I know in the past, like we have a fairly diverse group of members outside of those who are actually working at Texthelp that use the product and are happy to provide feedback and solutions and help you work through things. But know that your questions are all, and comments, good and bad, are definitely being seen by the company themselves. And I know that they have stepped in the past. And the team that Dan and Matt and the others at Texthelp, nothing but great things to say about their responsiveness and their ability to help us when we're trying to support our end users, the students or clients we're working with. They always come through for us. And I know that there's a few people in our audience here today who have personally experienced those fantastic levels of support, and I always hear back from it. So that's something for you to pass back through, Dan, is that your team, it doesn't go unnoticed when you help our members. So
Thank you, I appreciate that. I'll definitely let Matt and some of the others know that you guys appreciate us, and we're certainly always here to help.
all right, Anne's agreeing, Lisa's agreeing, yeah, and that's great. Again, we could sit here and poke at all the details all day. Oh, Suzanne has obviously benefited from your guys' support as well, so that's perfect. But I know that we had kind of set aside an hour for this webinar, and we're getting close to the end. So as we do start to wrap up here, just want to encourage anybody that has outstanding questions or comments, please feel free to put them into the chat or raise your hand. And I appreciate everybody's patience as we worked through some of the going live for the first time with Google Meet as an actual presentation. And so
yeah, that was a learning curve. Thank you, everybody, for hanging in there. And Dan, thank you very much for co-hosting with me. And Doug, appreciate your all your efforts and time with putting this together for us. I do have to run duty calls. I have tests to go in Proctor. So everybody have a lovely weekend. And again, thank you for the opportunity.
Great. Thank you, Lisa. Ahead of time, as I wrap up, I will express my appreciation through the conclusion of the webinar as well. But you have to take care of business and go and make sure that the Read Write and the LAN School is set up properly for those students so they can access their education. So That's great. So as we do come to a close, I'm not seeing any other questions or comments other than a lot of thank yous, and appreciate the wonderful webinar and all the information comments that are coming in there. No raised hands that I'm seeing here. So I'll just bring us to a close here. And before I do that, Dan, were there any other pieces of information that you wanted to leave the audience with?
No, I think we pretty much covered everything. And again, if anyone has questions, feel free to, I put my email in the chat. You can shoot me an email. I'm happy to help. But yeah, I hope everyone continues to have success with Read and Write. And if some of you are advocating your departments to try to get Read and Write, certainly reach out to me. I can help you with that too.
Yeah, I think you have some pretty good documentation that helps when people are trying to build a use case scenario, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, certainly we do.
Yeah. And as always, our webinars are of knowledge base and professional development for those who attend. We don't offer sales opportunities, but when there's this many people in the audience that are already on the Read and Write bandwagon, it's hard not to have a little bit of a sales type discussion. So I appreciate everybody and their understanding on that. So as we work through this educational webinar, and final note for those who are joining us as guests today and are not members of the Network of Assistive Technologists, please, I do encourage you to visit our website, N.O.A.T.ca, and consider joining. It's free and it's open to anybody that is affiliated with the assistive technology profession. You don't have to be an actual assistive technologist. As long as you're affiliated with the profession, we're glad to have you join us. So as we wrap up, I'm just want to again thank Lisa, Dan, profusely for your presentation today, for the information that you're sharing, and Dan for you giving us the update, a little bit of the roadmap that's coming in regards to some new developments for Read and Write. Looking very forward to those. And because as AT professionals, we're always adding to our toolboxes. We can never have enough different tools in there to choose from and be able to support those that we work with. So this information, no doubt, is going to further assist us in doing our jobs and supporting those that we look after. So again, thank you, and your continued support of the assistive technology profession, the accessibility community, and the network of assistive technologists. It's greatly appreciated. We look forward to you keeping the N.O.A.T community up to date, Dan, and I know I will communicate this to Lisa again, is for her, if she has any further information to share, for her to keep us up to date with her endeavors there with the exam and proctoring using Read Write as well. So please do stay in touch. And lastly, for everyone here today, thanks for joining us. Remember, you can't spell education without AT. So until next time, take care and stay safe.